If you don't even fully know yourself, your motives, thoughts, or emotions, how can you claim to know God? This question might sound almost impossible. For most people, the search for the divine seems like an outward pursuit through books, rituals, or belief systems. But Ibn Arabi, one of the greatest philosopher-mystics of Islamic history, reversed this direction. He argued that true knowledge of God begins with precise knowledge of oneself. Every religion urges us to know God. Yet Ibn Arabi insists you cannot know God without knowing yourself first. He does not mean psychological self-analysis or moral introspection. He refers instead to unveiling the structure of consciousness itself, the very faculty through which the divine becomes known. Modern science echoes this in an unexpected way. Psychology and neuroscience reveal that identity and perception are not fixed entities but constructed processes. Our sense of I is continuously assembled from memory, prediction, and interpretation. Ibn Arabi's hidden path therefore proposes something radical. Self-knowledge is not about discovering the self. It is about dissolving the illusion that separates consciousness from the reality that animates it. Modern life faces a crisis of identity. The contemporary individual lives in a web of and social comparison. We perform versions of ourselves online, measuring worth through visibility and validation. The result is a fragmented sense of being, hyper-aware of how we appear, but unclear about what we are. Psychological research confirms this fragmentation. Studies by Baumeister and Twenge show that excessive self-focus, coupled with digital performance culture, correlates with anxiety, depression, and narcissistic tendencies. The more we curate our self-image, the less authentic our experience of self becomes. Neuroscience offers a biological correlation. The brain's default mode network, discovered by Marcus Rachel in 2001, activates when the mind turns inward, thinking about the self, the past, or imagined futures. When this network becomes overactive, as in many anxiety and mood disorders, individuals experience repetitive self-referential loops. In essence, the modern mind mistakes the narrative self, the story we tell about who we are, for the real self, which is awareness itself, centuries before neuroscience. Ibn Arabi diagnosed this same problem in metaphysical language. Humans become hypnotized by transient forms and forget the reality that sustains them. Today's question is no longer who am I, but a deeper one. What is this I that keeps asking? Ibn Arabi lived in 12th and 13th century Andalusia and is often called Al-Sheikh al-Akbar, the greatest master. His works, especially the Meccan Revelations and the Bezels of Wisdom, outline an intricate metaphysical system that joins philosophy, spirituality, and psychology. His central maxim is simple yet vast in implication. He who knows himself knows his Lord by knowing. Ibn Arabi does not mean intellectual understanding or personality awareness. He means metaphysical recognition, realizing one's ontological dependence on the divine reality. For him, all knowledge is ultimately knowledge of God, because nothing exists independently of him. The self is not a separate substance, but a locus, where divine qualities appear in limited form. Modern psychology encourages strengthening identity to create stability. Ibn Arabi instead sought to see through identity to its ground in being. To grasp this hidden path, we can examine for interlinked ideas that form the foundation of his teaching on self-knowledge. For Ibn Arabi, the human being is like a mirror in which divine attributes become visible. The mirror itself possesses no image. It only reflects what stands before it. Likewise, the self does not create its own reality. It reveals aspects of the divine through the forms of experience. From a cognitive standpoint, consciousness functions similarly. Cognitive scientist Anil Seth describes perception as a controlled hallucination, the brain's ongoing attempt to model sensory inputs. What we experience as reality is the brain's best simulation of the world. This means perception is reflective, not generative. It mirrors patterns. It does not invent substance. To know yourself, then, is to understand the reflective nature of consciousness, observing how awareness displays forms without mistaking those forms for their source. When the mirror is clear, the reflection is accurate. When it is clouded by identification and emotion, the image distorts. Ibn Arabi's goal was the cleansing of perception so that the divine image could be seen without distortion. The next principle concerns the veil. What most people call self is, in Ibn Arabi's language, a veil, an accumulation of identifications, roles, memories, preferences, and fears. These layers create the illusion of a separate center of control. Modern psychology describes something similar. Research on ego dissolution and contemplative practice shows that loosening rigid self-boundaries produces increased empathy and a sense of unity with others. Ibn Arabi would say that lifting the veil allows awareness to perceive the real directly. The goal is not to annihilate individuality, but to recognize its conditional nature. The I that clings to possessions, beliefs, or identities is only a temporary reflection, useful, but not ultimate. When the veil thins, perception shifts from self-referential thought to pure witnessing. Reality is no longer filtered through personal narrative. It appears as it is. Ibn Arabi's cosmology rests on the divine names, attributes through which God discloses himself: mercy, power, beauty, justice, and so on. Every human being, he teaches, manifests a unique combination of these names. To know yourself is therefore to discern which names are active through your character, perception, and action. For example, one person may naturally express the name Al-Rahman, the compassionate, another Al-Acm, the wise, another Al-Jabbar, the restorer of order. This framework parallels personality psychology. Trait theory, for instance, describes consistent patterns of cognition and behavior that reflect underlying archetypal tendencies. In both views, individuality is not random, but an expression of deeper principles. Practically, awareness of your names brings balance. When mercy dominates without wisdom, sentimentality arises. When power operates without justice, imbalance follows. Self-knowledge thus becomes ethical calibration, aligning with the qualities you are meant to embody rather than suppressing them. Ibn Arabi's insight reframes identity as function. You are not a static personality, but a living configuration of divine attributes through which the universe knows itself. All these principles culminate in Ibn Arabi's central doctrine, Wahdat al-Wujd, the unity of being. The ultimate realization is that I have God within me, but there is no separate me apart from the divine being. This statement often invites misunderstanding. It is not pantheism, which equates everything with God, but ontological non-duality, the understanding that creation has no independent reality apart from its source. Existence is one continuum of manifestation. Neuroscience provides a curious echo. During deep meditation or mystical experience, Imaging studies showed deactivation of the brain's self-referential regions, particularly the medial prefrontal cortex. Participants report a sense of unity with all that exists. In psychological terms, this is self-integration. In Ibn Arabi's terms, it is witnessing the one reality through the dissolution of separateness. Knowing yourself, then, is the gradual recognition that there was never an isolated self to begin with. Ibn Arabi describes knowledge as an unfolding that occurs when the intellect acknowledges its limits. To know truly is to unknown, to let go of rigid concepts so reality can reveal itself without interference. In modern epistemology, this mirrors the idea of metacognitive humility. Understanding the boundaries of one's knowledge improves the accuracy of judgment. The mind that admits uncertainty perceives more clearly. The Sufi path cultivates this humility through remembrance and surrender. The seeker gradually releases attachment to concepts of self, divinity, and control. As these constructs dissolve, awareness becomes transparent to the real dot. Imagine cleaning the lens of a telescope. The less dust on the glass, the clearer the sky appears. Likewise, the less bias and identification obscure perception, the more faithfully truth reflects itself. The goal of self-knowledge, therefore, is not accumulation of information, but purification of perception, replacing certainty with clarity. How can these ancient principles function in modern life? Ibn Arabi's insights translate surprisingly well into cognitive and psychological practice. Step 1. Observe your self-narrative. Begin with metacognitive awareness, the capacity to notice thoughts as events rather than truths. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy shows that such awareness reduces rumination and increases psychological flexibility. When you observe the story of me, you start to see it as a narrative pattern, not an essence. Step 2. Identify your dominant names. Reflect on which qualities govern your behavior: compassion, precision, authority, or restraint. Observe how these tendencies shape perception and relationships. Imbalance indicates disconnection from the whole. Balance restores harmony between inner attributes and outer action. Step 3. Practice perceptual humility. Recognize the narrowness of your cognitive lens. Neuroscience shows that consciousness samples only a fraction of available data. Admitting this limitation softens certainty and opens intuition. This humility is not weakness, it is epistemic realism. Step 4. See others as mirrors. Interactions reveal hidden aspects of the self. Modern psychology calls this projection. We attribute to others what we fail to acknowledge in ourselves. Ibn Arabi reframes it positively. Every encounter is a mirror through which the divine teaches self-recognition. Through these practices, individuality is not erased but refined. The personality becomes transparent, a polished surface through which the attributes of the real can shine without distortion. Ibn Arabi's hidden path is less mystical poetry and more a rigorous phenomenology of consciousness. It describes, in systematic terms, how awareness recognizes its source. To know yourself is to trace every perception, emotion, and thought back to its origin in the field of being. The self is not the knower of God. It is the medium through which God knows himself in differentiated form. Modern science, in its own vocabulary, approaches the same realization. Phenomenology shows that awareness cannot be objectified from outside. Neuroscience confirms that consciousness is self-referential, illuminating itself by its own light. The journey, then, is not an ascent, toward something distant, but a return to what has always been present. You do not find God by escaping yourself. You find that the seeker, the seeking, and the one being sought are the same process. Reality observing itself through countless mirrors,